Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And today we're going to be continuing the top 50 solo board games list for 2022. This is numbers 30 through 21. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It's the best way to help us grow. And for those of you already subscribed, thank you so much for the continuous support. Let's get started talking about some incredible solo board games. And before we begin, I have one honorable mention, and that's for Batman The Dark Knight Returns, the board game. I just missed the creation of this list, but I've had an incredible time playing this these last couple of weeks, and I needed to make sure it was included. I'm not sure if it would be in numbers 30 through 21, but I think it would be somewhere in these top 50 because I'm having that much fun with it. In Batman The Dark Knight Returns, the board game, you play as the Caped Crusader during Frank Miller's iconic story. You'll be managing Gotham through a series of linked scenarios, 4 total missions, or through these amazing standalone missions that have some ramped up difficulty modes. I love these, and I love the action card system that stimulates the entire experience, and I love in that campaign mode how you have lasting upgrades, which can include some bonuses to your utility belt, as well as actually marking things on a dry erase board here. I love this system, and I think it's one that you need to check out, especially if you enjoy things like Nemo's War or Dawn of the Zeds, but you're looking for a little bit more agency and control, and you'll love the Batman theme. For a wonderful superhero experience, this is Batman The Dark Knight Returns, my honorable mention. My number 30 goes to Cthulhu Death May Die, where you play as investigators trying to disrupt a ritual. This ritual is summoning a giant Elder One, and it's going to happen, and hopefully you'll be able to defeat the Elder One once you figure out how to destroy it. Now, this game has you playing with a variety of characters, and in the solo mode in particular, you'll choose however many you want to play with, because you're essentially playing a multi-hand cooperative game. But the scenario that you pick and the Elder One that you pair it with are going to make for unique situations and scenarios, and that all ties into the characters you pick as well. That's my favorite part about this game is the characters, their level up system, and how it all happens in a single session of the game. When you pick a character, it has 3 different categories here. It has 2 basic effects and then 1 special unique ability that's going to be different based on the character you choose. So maybe you have Rasputin with extra lives, or a character that gets extra bonuses for failing things. I love the different choices when it comes to character customization. And then when you actually play them, you can level up these different abilities by going insane. The more that you tap into this terrible power, the more that you yourself progress. I think this is such a well-done concept because these madnesses seem like a negative thing, but you can weaponize them, and that is key to success in the game. You can choose how difficult you want it to be based on the number of players that you're using, and I love the different options when it comes to pairing up the characters and pairing up the different situations and scenarios, and that leveling up system, the fact that it happens all in one game, and you're able to customize and choose. You have these 3 different tech tree options that you're working for. This is a great experience with a very different take on this Cthulhu Mythos theme. That is my number 30, Cthulhu Death May Die. My number 29 goes to Ark Nova, where you play as zookeepers, creating enclosures, filling them with animals, and attracting guests. You also give back through the use of conservation projects. At the core of this game, though, is an action card system that I think makes it. On your turn, you'll choose a single one of these cards and slide it down, trigger the action at whatever the power level it's at, and then move it to the weakest power on the left. This river system is an optimization puzzle. It's going to have you planning multiple turns ahead. And in the solo mode in particular, this is even more important. The solo mode of the game has you playing on a timer. At the end of every one of your turns, after you do your action and move it over, you'll slide one of these cubes on this little board here to the right once. As soon as all of those cubes are to the right, you'll remove 1 cube permanently, reset them, and trigger a coffee break. That's sort of like an income phase, a generation of money, discarding down to your hand size, and then resetting the board a little bit. In the main game, this is player driven, but in the solo mode, you have a specific timer, so it's up to you to use and manage your resources before that timer runs out. Now, aside from the action card system, my other favorite part about this game are the different bonuses that come from the sponsored cards. This game has a lot of similarities to other games like Terraforming Mars. We have lots of unique abilities and powers, and I love when you find a sponsored card that's very interesting and fun and gives you an ability that you may have never seen before or never tried to use in the game before. In the solo mode, you have a lot of room to explore. There are so many cards to get through. Ark Nova, a wonderful engine building game with a lovely theme. That's my number 29. My number 28 goes to Final Girl, where you play as the titular Final Girl. It's your goal to survive and defeat the enemy or whatever scenario you're currently in. This game is based on a plug-and-play system where you'll choose a villain, choose a final girl, and choose a map and match those all together to create a unique experience. Final Girl puts thematics first, where the villains have their own unique way of doing things. For example, Dr. Fright here can attack you in your dreams, and you have to go to sleep in order to attack him yourself. Or in Maple Lane, the location that's tied with Dr. Fright, you actually have to knock on doors and get permission. You can't just break into people's houses. I think these little thematic touches do a great job at bringing out an emergent narrative throughout the game. Aside from the thematics, my favorite part about Final Girl, though, is the action card system. I love that you have a hand of options that you'll start with every game, and it's up to you how you want to spend these cards, to move, to interact, to guarantee successes, or to bank and just gain more points to buy more cards for your hand. You have a lot of different management going on, not just with the cards, but with the people you're saving on the board, as well as your own personal health, the different tracks and items that populate the game. Tied to the action card system is a fail-forward system that makes it feel that you're always achieving something. Even if you fail one of your skill checks in a major way, you'll always have an option to mitigate that failure, whether it be taking a penalty to ensure a little bit of success in what you were trying to do, whether it be move or search, or having to forego future actions to ensure this one's success. I love the options that are present for the mitigation, and it makes it so that risk-taking is not as punishing as it may seem. For a thematic one-shot horror adventure, I recommend Final Girl, my number 28. My number 27 goes to The Lord of the Rings, the card game. This is an LCG format game, which means you'll be getting a set of cards, and you'll be creating decks with those cards, and then taking them on to quests. One of my favorite things about the game is the quest system. I love that it's a single-shot scenario, and you're assembling your crew of 3 heroes and trying to defeat it. It'll tell you a story as you progress through each of its phases, and you're trying to take down whatever tricks it may have up its sleeve. And because there's a lot of content for this game already, you're able to explore a lot of new mechanisms and unique gimmicks that it has to throw out at you. The game flow is very straightforward. You have 3 heroes, you'll gain resources, you'll play cards with those resources, and then the enemy phase will happen, and bad stuff will happen to you. Another thing that I really love about the game is the combat, how each of the enemies is a huge threat, and you're not sure how they're going to react because they get these shadow cards that'll give them terrible effects. Another thing I really enjoy has to do with the contract cards, and these have been introduced in later sets. Things like Messenger of the King, where it's going to change how you're constructing your different setups, where you can only have 2 heroes, but you get an ally as your 3rd hero. My favorite contract card is Council of the Wise. This means that you can only have 1 of each card in your deck, which is going to decrease the consistency of your deck drastically, because normally you can have multiple copies of cards, but this makes it so you get an additional bonus effect, which I just think is so much fun. You're exploring a huge card pool and also getting a passive bonus on top of it. I love these different unique deck building challenges that these cards give you, and I think they're definitely worth checking out. If you're looking for something a bit more interconnected, there's also the Saga expansions, which will tell the story of the trilogy, as well as The Hobbit, and go through multiple scenarios where your characters may die and may get upgrades, boons, rewards, or maybe curses or scars throughout your experience. There's a lot to love in Lord of the Rings, the card game. So much content for this game, and if you're a fan of the IP or the theme at all, I think this is going to be right up your alley. They're also currently doing a revival of the entire series, so this is a great jumping point. You can get in, get that new revised core edition of the box, and then follow along with the new pack release structure. I hope you enjoy this one as much as I do. This is my number 27, Lord of the Rings, the card game. My number 26 goes to Anachrony, a worker placement game of time travel, as you've received news from the future that impending doom is coming. A meteorite is clashing with the Earth, and soon you'll need to evacuate. And that's your goal, is to evacuate. You'll have a specific condition that you'll need to satisfy, and hopefully make it out on time. The gameplay itself for the solo mode has you using either the Chronobot or this new Chronosis in the newest expansion. I think the Chronosis is amazing because it's able to integrate all of the expansion content, and there's a lot of expansion content for Anachrony. The solo mode is very intuitive as you're putting these tokens onto these specific spots at the start of the game, and you're simply rolling a die. Based on that die roll, you're going to know exactly what action that the AI is going to do. It's going to perform that action and then move across one of these lines. For example, there's a token here, it rolls a 3, perform the action, then move along. This gives you some prediction as well as some assessment as to what the Chronosis is going to be able to do, which gives you planning for its future moves, figuring out what you need to prioritize as well. And as I said before, there's the module integration for all the different expansions. And the way they do this is very similar to something like Race for the Galaxy, where you'll have a tile that's for a specific expansion, and it'll replace one of the other actions on the board. I love how simple and how well integrated this is, and how little upkeep you're going to have to do to actually run it. The tension and push your luck from the predictability of the Chronosis make it for an experience that I'm always excited to try more of. If you look on the channel, there's a huge deep dive on the mechanisms of Anachrony and why I love it so much, but the Chronosis here is special in the fact that it makes this complex game have a solo mode that runs so smoothly. So that is my number 26, Anachrony. My number 25 is Under Falling Skies. It's a game of space invaders where you have a base in front of you, you'll be rolling dice, assigning them to different areas, and doing an effect based on the power of the dice that you place. Now, in addition to that, you'll be moving the invaders that many spaces down. It's a management of threat as you decide how much you're willing to let those enemies move based on how much power you want to take for the actions. My favorite part about this game is the dice management, but specifically, I love the reroll system. Whenever you're placing a die, if it's gray, you just perform the action and then resolve the invader movement. However, if it's white, after performing the action, you reroll all remaining dice. This is a wonderful choice because it's up to you to go with your guaranteed information as to what you've already rolled or to push your luck and roll. You decide when you want to roll, when you want to play these things, but you always have to resolve the number first. I love this choice. I love this option because sometimes you may have to make an early roll, sometimes you wait for later, or sometimes you make do with what you have because you don't want to risk re-rolling something. This is such a great option, and the replayability that comes with the campaign, as well as different bases, different cities, and different invaders. This is a game that you'll find yourself playing quite a bit because it is so approachable, so easy to get into, but very satisfying in its dice placement mechanisms. That is Under Falling Sky, my number 25. My number 24 goes to Kingdom Death Monster, where you play as an omniscient being in charge of controlling a settlement of survivors. You'll send these survivors on hunts, they'll take down their quarries and bring back their organs, bones, and hides in order to create new things, whether it be items or innovations. One of my favorite things about the game are the boss fights themselves. You'll have these AI cards that are thematic and interesting, and they have a flowchart that clearly present what the different creatures will do. And when you actually attack a monster, it'll tell you where you hit them. Maybe you hit them on the tail and you'll see what that does, or you hit them in their hand, and of course that might not be a good idea. And if you crit something, it's going to be even more interesting and thematic and memorable. But when you're playing the solo game, there's one key thing that I think is really important to mention, and that has to do with managing the society. As a solo player, it's up for you to decide and manage all different choices in the game. What different items are you going to purchase? What proficiencies are you going to work on? What innovations are you going to create and prioritize? And what principles is your society going to follow? All of these choices are up to you, and I think that's very empowering as a solo player because you get to manage all of these characters on your own. You'll have this large settlement sheet that'll guide you, but I love the choices and how you get to make them, and you get to get comfortable and learn and live in this land of Kingdom Death Monster. Kingdom Death Monster offers a huge campaign system that you can engross yourself in, playing a variety of campaigns, exploring a variety of different monsters, and learning and understanding the AI that goes into them, and being able to construct plans and hopefully create a thriving settlement that's able to survive the darkness. So that is my number 24, Kingdom Death Monster. My number 23 goes to Cloudspire, a tower defense game where you play as a unique faction of these sky-dwelling races. You'll be making a large stack of minions and then sending them out to defeat your opponent's fortresses. You'll also have heroes that you control and spires that you will build to prevent them from doing the same to you. The solo mode of Cloudspire has you playing out of a scenario book. Each scenario will detail what faction you play as, what tiles to set up, as well as unique objectives that you'll need to complete. I love this because it's a unique puzzle each time, and the scenarios are very creative. Some scenarios may be a little bit more traditional, but have some unique objectives thrown in there, and others may turn the game completely on its head, adding new additional pieces and changing the way that different things move. There's a lot of creativity in these pages. And on top of all of that, every single solo scenario is linked. You'll be earning this resource called Renown. That's essentially your victory points, your objectives. You can get, I think, up to 3 of them each time that you play a mission, and those carry on from mission to mission and will affect the setup. In addition, your results from the last one, maybe if you had a certain number of spires destroyed or set up, may also affect these missions. They will trickle through, and it's going to tell you the overarching story of the universe of Cloudspire. The solo mode of Cloudspire gives you the opportunity to learn and grow with these factions and explore all of their intricacies. So that is is my number 23, Cloudspire. My number 22 goes to Assassin's Creed. This is a re-implementation of the V Commando system with the Assassin's Creed theme put on top of it. This has you playing as the Brotherhood of Venice. You'll take your assassins, go out on missions, and continuously uncover new things. That's one of my favorite parts about this game, is that there's a lot of hidden information and a lot to explore. Each mission progresses, continues, and you'll always have a new interesting objective to chase down, whether it be uncovering something through looking through one of the watchtowers or opening a chest and revealing a new treasure to help you in future scenarios. In addition to the items that you're going to be getting through chests, you're going to be getting a variety of items throughout the games, and that's one of my other favorite things about this. I love the consistency and the rate at which you're getting items, because you can always loot these bodies that you'll be littering the floor with when you're doing your whole assassin thing, and these items are going to be one-time use most of the time, but because you're getting them so consistently, the game encourages you to use them, and I think that's wonderful. You're always going to be wanting to throw a smoke bomb out, use a hang glider, use some of the new items and weapons and new things you're discovering along the way. There's a lot of interesting choices here, and the game encourages you to explore them and use them as tools to tackle the different objectives. My other favorite part about this game is the turning point. During each mission, generally, you're trying to be as stealthy as possible. This is going to make it so that you can go undetected. There aren't going to be as many characters that are spawning that you have to fight. But at a certain point, you have to decide when you're ready to unveil yourself, and things will get crazy. I love that it's up to you to make this choice, and you have to determine when and where is the best time to do so. Will you be able to complete your objective in time? Will you make it out unscathed? Will you make just enough noise and then go back into obscurity? I think that these are a lot of great choices that will affect your current game state, and because this is a large campaign system game, it will carry on. Your consequences really do matter here, and you'll have to use all of the different things at your disposal to make sure that each mission is successful. So that is my number 22, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice. My number 21 goes to Hostage Negotiator. Now, specifically, I want to call that career here because this is pretty much the only version I play. This is actually the original version of a game we talked about earlier on this list, Final Girl, but I think Hostage Negotiator Career is the ultimate experience in the form of this hand management system. In Career, you play as a hostage negotiator, but you're going through the entire life of this person. Not only are you worried about the actual abductors and trying to rescue as many people possible there, but you're also dealing with all of the home stuff, your personal life, as well as any stressors that may result as a part of that. Let's say that you successfully had a great mission, but you bring all that baggage home of all of the fallout that has occurred. This makes for a really interesting thematic integration and lasting impacts of your successes, but also your failures. You're trying to go for promotions to get extra abilities, but you're also trying to manage your work and home stress. Most of the game's mechanics are very similar to Final Girls, but without a board that you're moving on. You're going to be collecting different conversation points through cards instead of passively, and then based on what you get and what choices you make, you're going to be able to add new cards to your hand and attempt to solve whatever situation you find yourself in by managing the threat, rescuing hostages, or potentially taking out abductors. And based on those results, you're going to move forward with your story, leading up to an incredible finale. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but the way that the finales use the results of your previous successes and failures is brilliant, and I think that all of the different finales are worth checking out. So I have played through all of them, and they're all very varied and bring new things to the table and to this Hostage Negotiator universe. In addition to the different thematics of the experience, I love the different thematics that are related specifically to the abductors. Each one brings its own unique baggage, and each one is going to tie in with the overall story in a very interesting way. And I think they're all worth exploring. Hostage Negotiator Career is a 10-part, smaller campaign game that you'll find yourself playing quite a bit because of the short playtime of each individual session. This is one that you will finish, you will complete, and you will want to play again because of the variety when it comes to the different abductors, the finales, as well as the different cards you'll actually be using, because with Crime Wave as well as the original Hostage Negotiator, there are multiple sets of these conversation cards that you can use. I love the choice and the modularity of the expansions, and I love that it explores all of the different content for the game, and that you can choose how you would progress based on the decisions you make. What are you going to do? What kind of investigator will you become based on the choices that you are going to be putting in front of you? I love how the results of your hostage negotiations are going to affect your story, but I also love that equally as important are the decisions you make. Are you going to be a good cop, a bad cop? How are you going to approach the gray area in between? It's up to you how you want your story to unfold. So that is my number 21, Hostage Negotiator career. And that's the list. Those are my numbers 30 through 21, top 50 solo board games of all time, the 2022 edition. What did you think of these games? Did you expect any of them? Were any of them surprises? I'd love to hear your general thoughts on them. Did you think they need to be further on the list or should be completely off? I'd love to hear what you think. But thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.